Morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. It is our pleasure to see you joining us here today as we discuss opportunities for us to grow in Uganda's emerging sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, it is natural for us, I believe, for us to want to grow as an entrepreneur who is running a business. Whichever business you're running, it is important that you continue looking out for opportunities so that you can continue creating value in different avenues. I also want to remind you that when COVID hit us in 2020, the entrepreneurs or the businesses that remained resilient are those that had diversified and were operating in different sectors. In fact, some people, chose to move away from what they had been doing and started other enterprises in other sectors. So this morning, we want to talk about the new sectors that are taking root, which have the potential diversify our economy, create opportunities, and also propel us towards a more prosperous future. And we are excited to host Dr. Edwin Musiime, and allow me to tell you a little more about Dr. Musiime. So Dr. Musiime, who is not new to us, those of you that watched the property show on NTV, is the CEO and the chairman of River Group Africa, an enterprise with interests in various sectors, including real estate, media, agriculture, furniture manufacturing, interior designing, and the green economy. It is through this platform, the River Group Africa, that he is redefining African excellence and global competitiveness. He's also the founder of the Kingdom Network Africa, an organization that empowers Christians in business and leadership. He's also the director of the Green Economy East Africa, promoting ecological innovation and economic resilience across the region. He is committed to empowering young people, and he chairs the board of the Chamber of Young Entrepreneurs, supporting young people to live their dreams. Dr. Musiime would like to welcome you to this Become a Better Entrepreneur series. The purpose of this series is to ensure that our people share experiences, learn from each other, and go and improve their businesses, knowing that this is what is going to enable our country grow and move forward. You're welcome to make your presentation. You have 40 minutes. We shall also have a question and answer session. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay, hope I'm here. Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you from where I am. I guess everybody else is able to hear you.
Okay, good morning and blessed morning, everybody. I choose that my face be seen, at least for the purposes of this presentation. I hope everybody's well this morning. And all right, great. So where do I begin from? Firstly, allow me appreciate the architects of this particular program that I'm told I think happens weekly. Miss Edith Basagra that was in earlier on, and Dr. Diana Ntamu. Thank you very, very much. I was very excited to be a part of this conversation. I know that the title doctor is still new to me as well. I just got my confirmation later 2 days ago, and I'm due for my graduation just on the 9th of May. It's a journey that I began a couple of years ago, and my major is a doctor in leadership and management. My thesis was a very interesting one where I was focusing on next level thinking as a paradigm shift in leadership and management in East Africa. Then later on, of course, I broadened it by writing a book, which this weekend I premiere on my next level thinking global tour in Dubai and Qatar. A book on next level thinking that I would encourage everybody to get as soon as we launch it in Uganda in May. Now, before I go any further, I just want to reemphasize one thing that I would encourage everybody that is on this platform, if you're a Christian, to be a part of the Kingdom Network. And I'll tell you one of the reasons is that we're right now incubating heavy global programs on how we can actually get to the next level in terms of business and leadership. And if you're interested in joining, you can look up my PA, who is actually online today, 0744 771 010. That's 0744 771 010. That's Trevor. Can reach him up and communicate that you want to be a part of the Kingdom Network. Also to remind you that I invite all of you that on the 6th of May, we'll be having the Grand Leadership Program, which happens every first Tuesday of the month. And this month, May, we'll be focusing on wealth creation systems and kingdom finance. So we have Mr. Yebade, the head of financial literacy in Uganda, and the famous Brenda Beck for me, and I'll be there as well. All right, let's get into this. I have 40 minutes. So the conversation around discovering avenues for growth in Uganda, firstly, let me say that I hope, Dr. Diana, I'm allowed to freely speak. Am I allowed to freely speak?
Please, yes,
okay,
sir.
Great. There are two things that I want to take note of. I think from the time I pursued my doctorate, quite a lot has changed in my thinking. Let me first of all improve our subject today. Discovering avenues for growth in Uganda's emerging sectors. I want to encourage us to stick to this theme, but let's broaden it in our thinking so that we evolve into thinking about discovering avenues for growth in East Africa, in Africa's emerging sectors later on globally. And I'll tell you why later on in my presentation. Secondly, I constantly had Madame Edith. Is Madame Edith a doctor as well?
Yes, she's Dr. Edith Basalirwa.
Dr. Edith Basalirwa. Allow me also make a comment in passing based on my experience as chairman of Chamber of Young Entrepreneurs. I kept hearing, I think that department is something and then small businesses. And I'll tell you something. Under my study, by scrutiny, I've realized that Africa is hugely dealing with the curse of small, medium enterprises. And that's why for the people that I mentor, young or old, I always tell them, I don't want to meet you and I ask you, what do you do? And you tell me I'm running a small business, which is a salon, a small business, which is a pantry, no. My wish would be, and in future again, just a free thought, that in future, it can be a program that is the first word you kept mentioning that I've forgotten, and then add business. Every time we've placed in our minds small, frankly speaking, I'll tell you that, yeah, Trevor, you go ahead and do and share those details. I'll tell you something. Africa, literally, they tell you, has had over the years only 8 unicorns. A unicorn is a business that evolves from a startup to become a $1 billion market capitalized business. Nigeria has had 4 of these. East Africa has had only 1. That's in Kenya. So I hope and pray that in future, there will be a shift in that particular program so that that word small, in future, I hope it can be eliminated and we leave it as business. But I thought I would just share that thought. Okay. Now, I was encouraged by Dr. Diana to also, to share briefly about my story. Now, I'll tell you something. Let me begin with the end and I'll go to the beginning. Yesterday, I went to a certain hotel for a meal. And the hotel manager happens to be Kenyan. And she came over and asked me, "Sir, how are you doing? How do you feel today in Kampala? Which country do you come from?" Now, I was very impressed with that question. Why? Because by the way, what Dr. Diana forgot to mention, and the investments that River Group does, we are as well into fashion and apparels. And all my suits everywhere you see me, these are all custom made by River Group. So River Suits and River Collection. So if there's a man that is watching right now that would love to be dressed as Dr. EM, please reach Trevor and we'll make sure we suit you up. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I developed a mindset early that I didn't want to look Ugandan. I didn't want to look, I wanted to only look African by the color of my skin, not the way I look in presentation in terms of personal branding, not the way I talk, not the content of what I deliver, and not the results of my life. Now, let me take you back to the beginning of all things. The turning point, I would say, in my life was about when I was 13 years old, when my father passed on. Before my father passed on, and this is why I tell parents who are listening in right now, it's very important what you speak over your children. It's very important. I remember one day I was playing football in the compound, and I had him over speaking to a family friend, and he told him, I have faith in my boy that one day he will rise up to be someone. 13 years old, I remember kicking the ball so hard in the air. Unfortunately, in 1994, my father was to pass on. We were quite a very comfortable family, not extremely wealthy, but fairly wealthy, because he was a great hardworking man with a strong work ethic, which in many aspects of Africa now is lacking, which we need to rebuild again. But in his passing on, things changed. So my mother, who was raising me at the time, then tells me the only way you can go to school is that we got into agriculture. We bought chicken and cows. So I had to take care of chicken and cows to actually raise my school fees. Little did I know that actually this would begin shaping my business acumen. So I started a bit early. I would go to school a bit late, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. But what that gifted me with was the ability to appreciate the ethic of work. Now, to the Christians that might be on this platform, I always tell you, success is not a miracle. Success is a process. God is not a magician. Success is a process. So I learned early to appreciate this entire process. And I remember as soon as I got into Namilyango, I went to Nagalama. Now, in Nagalama, it was very critical for me to decide what I wanted to be in this life. I knew that I wanted to be a journalist. And guess what I did? And the power of innovation for me started a bit earlier. So I realized that Tuesdays were the most boring assemblies. So what I did, I introduced what they called NBC. So some of you that watched me on UTV, UBC, Property Show, think that that journey began on television. No, it didn't begin there. That's why I want to tell every entrepreneur that is listening to me, business owner, that the journey to build the acumen for entrepreneurship must begin early. If it didn't begin early for you, let it begin early for your children. But even you that is listening, it's not too late. So I introduced NBC, Nagalama Broadcasting Corporation. Listen, there was no microphone at that time. I had no speakers, but I would stand on the assembly and speak to 800 kids reading news. Every week, I would collect news and all that kind of thing. Long story short, my other turning point was when my mother told me, listen, if you don't make it to government sponsorship, it's over. And I remember that time I used to be about number 40 in school, and then now that had to change. So I started spending the night reading. I would read all night long. And I remember when they were going to have the Leavers Ball or Leavers Party, I decided to go home because economics was I was still lacking in economics. And I went back home, and the principal didn't understand how someone asks for permission to go home just to read economics. And I remember I ended up being one of the only 2 students that struck an A in economics. Long story short, when the results came back in my year, we were the two best students. That was me and a gentleman called Robert Wamala, who works with URA as head, I think, communication, something like that. But remember, I was always number 46, 47. So encouragement to parents again there that, hey, never give up on your children. Sometimes geniuses are born, sometimes geniuses are made. Now, fast forward, as soon as I get into vacation, straight away, I didn't wait for the degree. I didn't wait for what we call the hustle. Immediately, I went to UTV. There was no announcement. And one of the principles I always give people is that in this life, you've got to be aggressive and tough. Know what you want, go for it. Listen to this statement I always make as well. In life, you do not get what you deserve sometimes. You get what you negotiate for. Can I say that again? In life, you do not get what you deserve. Sometimes you get what you negotiate for. I remember walking up to, I think the late Irene Zixok at that time, went over to UTV, was very confident. I had trained and prepped myself all night long. Good afternoon, madam. Are you on appointment, sir? I'm like, no, I'm not on appointment. However, I have something very pertinent to discuss with you. She says, go on. Long story short, I tell her the value add that I had for UTV then in Nakasero. She's like, wow, so confident for your age. I'm like, thank you, ma'am. Come back for a screen test. Now, for those of you that watch me on TV, I always feel so old when I meet a gray-haired person telling me I grew up watching you on television. So I started way early. But that was my journey. Now, why am I telling you about UTV? I worked on UTV for 5 years. We were earning 25,000 Uganda shillings, not dollars, not pounds, 25,000 Uganda shillings. And I remember would walk from Nakasero to receive that money at Nile Avenue, where present UBC is. And unfortunately, when you would get there at about 5, 6, when they're closed, you'd have to go back till the next day, the process would repeat itself. But I will tell you why I appreciated working for 25,000 Uganda shillings, which many young people that I mentor today never can tolerate. I mean, 25,000 shillings today cannot buy me a pair of shoes, cannot buy my necktie. At that time, it was the process. I was building my value. Now, I'll tell you why working on UTV and UBC, earning that little, what it did for me. Now, it brings me to my next conversation, the 7 types of capital that are very critical, and then I'll get to discovering the avenues for growth. Number 1, I was able to build my spiritual capital because then I was hosting the Christian Voice, those of you that will remember, and I met all sorts of religious leaders, Catholic, Anglican, born again, and I learned quite a lot. And I learned the ethos that God first in all that I do. God first in all that I do. Very important for every business owner. And someone is asking, when is Dr. going to start on the day's topic? Now, Dr. Dana, you told me that my personal journey was very important, and someone is asking. So let me jump into the topic. Now, so the different types of capital that helped me. Now, I know that someone wants me to get into the actual topic, but what you forget is that the things I was about to speak actually are very critical to this topic. So, Dr. Diana, do I just delve into the topic and leave this part out? What do I do? Guide me.
You can summarize your personal journey, but and then get into the topic. But we
Okay.
really so please go ahead.
The personal journey is over. Now, what I gathered from then was, number 1, spiritual capital was very important. Social capital. I'll tell you something, that working through UBC then, I got my first opportunity to travel to the US, to the UK. Literally, I was able to gather travel history presently of close to 25 years. Social capital, I met quite a number of people. Thank you, Rebecca. I met quite a number of people along the way. Today, I'll tell you something, that men like Charles Mbiri, I associate with them not because I'm very powerful in business, but because they've grown up watching my brand on television. And then now I'm able to discuss business with them because of that social capital. We always say that your networks are your net worth. However, and every time you do not have value to be brought onto the table, then it means that your networks are going to be very useless. And the reason some of you will understand why my personal journey is important on discovering avenues for growth is this. I'll tell you one last story and I'll jump into the very subject we're looking at. I remember 8 years ago, I once ran into one of the wealthy men in Uganda, and I said hello, reached out with my hand and I said hello. And I was so excited because he was my icon. I'm not going to mention his name. He kept his hands remained in his pockets. And he just said, hello, young man, how are you? He walked past me. He ignored me. But there's another type of capital I learned, emotional capital. Never take things personal. It's never personal. What I learned is that the world is never interested in how you are. They're interested in who you are. That's why you'll notice some of you, there are times you'll ask someone, how are you? Before you respond, they will move on to the next thing. But 7 years later, I begin to build what I am today. So what happens is that after UBC, I worked with UBC for 12 years. Then my observation taught me that by age 30, I do not want to be employed. In life, we must set our targets and goals. If you're employed at the moment, if you're running your own business, there must be very important timelines that you set. So by 30, I resigned and set up the first business, which was Crest Group. And our first product was the property show. Of course, many people watch the property show and always watch it. They think I'm an employee of NTV. But actually what happened is that we just simply do a content exchange program. We provide the content on the TV show, we split advertising revenue. We replicated the same. We replicated the same. we replicated the same for Rwanda, for Tanzania. Now we're doing Malawi, Ghana. That's the property show franchise in Africa. And I think Dr. Diana mentioned something about diversification. Guess what? While we're doing the property show, many of you may not know it, but the property show before COVID was the wealthiest show on the airwaves. We were grossing close to 100 million per month, which meant that the TV channel, of course, takes 50%, we take 50%. When COVID hit, advertising revenue was removed. By the time it was removed, I had already identified the emerging sector. The emerging sector was construction. Now, because of the property show, I had been exposed to the industry of real estate. Then we set up an interior designing company. We started a furniture manufacturing company. So by the time COVID set in, literally, remember the essential workers? Who were the essential workers? It was media, but most importantly, construction. So we actually made more wealth, produced more income during the COVID season. Now, the types of capital that I've talked about: one, spiritual capital, social capital, intellectual capital, emotional capital, time capital, financial capital. Let's move into today's theme. Discovering avenues. I mentioned, Dr. Diana, that we need to diversify and open our minds to the opportunities around us in the country and in the region. And I'll tell you why. One day when I was setting up River Group Africa, I thought to myself, I set a financial goal, and it's very important for all of us to always have goals, investment goals, financial goals, because without that, then it's difficult to set up a vision that will drive you to those goals. Now, this was my personal financial goal. I said to myself, by this particular age, without mentioning which age, I wanted my organization to be worth $5 billion. But guess what? I looked at the market cap of our GDP. Uganda's GDP is about $48 billion. And I realized it's humanly impossible to produce wealth worth $5 billion as an individual in a country of $48 billion. I began to look at East Africa. East Africa, with the 8 nations, now we are at a staggering GDP of just about $450 billion, which was great, but not good enough. I started to look at Africa as a whole. Africa as a whole, ladies and gentlemen, is a $2.8 trillion GDP economy. Why am I giving you these figures? I always tell entrepreneurs and business leaders, it's very difficult for you to be able to grow your market capitalization without understanding the industry in which you're operating in. So even as we talk about emerging industries and avenues for growth, we are talking about the keyword growth. Growth beyond certain boundaries cannot be possible. What I decided to do is then I decided to expand and enlarge. Right now, over the weekend, I'm off to Dubai and Qatar to discuss with my partners for renewable energy and agriculture. I needed to start thinking outside of Uganda. So that's a key principle for everybody here to learn. Please, the world should be our oyster. We should be doing business with Ugandans, East Africans, Africans, and the world at large. When you look at emerging areas, many of you are very interested in real estate. When you look at the real estate sector, for instance, we, for the last 5, 6, 7 years, close to a decade, have had a housing deficit of 1.8 to 2.2 at the moment million housing units. So there's a huge gap. But the problem, when you think real estate, many people quickly think building houses and properties, which is a high net worth aspect to the whole business ecosystem. But when you look at the value chain of real estate, it is very huge. We are talking now smart homes. We are talking about waste management. We're talking about interior designing. We're talking about property management. We're talking about cleaning services. We're talking about fumigation. There's quite so much. However, what I want to say to you that in the book that I wrote, Next Level Thinking, when we're talking about emerging markets, emerging sectors that we ought to be looking at, I'll also tell you something, that it's very difficult for me to sit here and begin to tell you what you should invest in and what you should not invest in. And one of the other principles I always tell people is that if you do not know what you want yet, at least you must know what you do not want. Over the Easter weekend, I visited a good friend of mine who is having about 80 acres of land, and he has an amazing country home, which my company did a design for interior. Those of you that are familiar with the Kawuya family. But what was important is not the amazing property we designed for them. They took me to their agricultural plan on that land. They showed me their chicken at the moment. And they told me that within 6 months, chicken, eggs. I told them, why into the broilering? They're like, no. That's an area we don't want to go. So that's a very important principle. Many Africans or Ugandans, when they sit to listen to me right now, they are looking for what's trending so that I get into what's trending, which is the wrong approach to business. All the things I invest in, we have about 8 companies under River Group, but whatever I invest in, I'm passionate about it, and I'm passionate, it adds value to society, and it has return on investment. You must discover this investment yourself, not Dr. Diana, not Dr. Edwin telling you what exactly to do. That is why our education system was always the greatest challenge that we always had, because it taught us what to think, not how to think. So quickly, when you look at the sectors that are driving innovation, boosting productivity, and transforming how businesses and individuals operate in Uganda, East Africa, and Africa at large, we talk about technology and innovation. All of you that are on this platform would understand so greatly that the fintech world, Nigeria is doing so good at this. Let me also add this to everybody listening in. Please, King Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived on earth, once said there's nothing new under the sun. What you think is new to you is actually not new to another market. The reason every month I make sure this magazine is on my table, Forbes, is because I want to know what's happening in Africa. It will interest you how what you are struggling with right now to coin together and set up a business plan, somebody in Ghana is already doing. Somebody in Kenya is already doing. So it's very important that you create that intellectual capital of desiring to discover these aspects and territories on your own. So the fintech world, the e-commerce world, right now I've told my teams to get aggressive on the digitalization. The broadcasting world as it is, I served the broadcasting world for 20 plus years, but I'll tell you something for free, and I'm not, this is not a prophecy, it's a reality. Traditional media in the next 1 decade is going to be gone. That's the reality of things. We are in the AI era, 4th, 5th industrial revolution. And I usually feel bad for some of the sectors that we're even talking about. I walk into a bank and I feel sympathetic for the retailers, the people that are operating as tellers. The last time I was in the United States of America, I went to one of the banks, Wells Fargo Bank, because I wanted to do a transaction. I walked in and they asked me, how can we help you, sir? It was an empty banking hall. And they told me, sir, over there, if you want a deposit, there was a booth there and I had to do it on my own. That is, if we're talking next level thinking, and we're thinking about the emerging sectors and the growing sectors we should be looking at. Fuel pumps in Europe, those of you that are well traveled, you clearly know nobody serves you gas at the station. It's self-service. And fortunately, that's where the world is going. Agriculture and agro-processing, food. This family that I visited in Bombo, I tell you what, they told me at the moment they are earning up to 70 million per month just in egg sales, just in selling eggs. Actually, the weekend we were there on Easter, the wife tells me, I cannot handle the demand anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine that? She could not handle the demand. And their 6 months trajectory and plan right now is they want to start doing 100 million in egg sales. Then they tell me they want to import Frisian cows from Kenya so that they can be able to produce about 4,000 liters of milk per month. And I said, why Kenya? Do you see the point I started with, thinking outside of Uganda? They told me the cows in Uganda are actually, the Frisians, do not give necessarily biologically that much amount of milk. And I said, oh, so they are bringing in cows from Nairobi and their projection is they should be able to get at least another 100 million per month from just milk sales. Ladies and gentlemen, all these are sectors, and when we talk about agriculture and agro-processing, whether you want it or not, these are sectors that are not luxury sectors. Now, my industry, for instance, one of my businesses like luxury and fashion, someone could choose to do it without a suit. But I didn't get into this business necessarily for just only the return on investment. I have the many other aspects that will bring in the cash and the revenues. Then the luxury, there will always be a market for that. But if you get it, and that answers the question to some people always tell me, real estate, I want to build a hotel. I'll tell you something. When you look across the world at all the millionaires and billionaires that invest in real estate, many of them do not invest in real estate for necessarily just the return. They're in for the long term. When COVID hit, for instance, hotels were not in business, but the late Aga Khan, the Sudils of this world were not bothered. Their cash flows were not affected. It's the employee that was affected, not the entrepreneur of the business. So it's also very important to understand the market space that you want to enter in. Renewable energy, natural resources, sustainability. Right now, in the face and wake of climate change, I was telling people, you need to be innovating around look at the heat waves right now. It is intensively so hot in the nights when it's hot. It's intensively hot. Have you sat down to think about how you can actually create a solution to this heat? My mentor always told me that our greatest revenues and wealth creation is in every problem we can be able to solve on a daily basis. So when you look at renewable energy and natural resources, let me also introduce something very interesting to you. There's a rising middle class. Every economy and government in East Africa right now is looking at promoting the middle class. Tanzania, every country is trying to own the bragging rights for pushing their country first to the middle class economy. What does this mean for you and me? It means increased consumption, which means the growing middle class is driving demand for retail, consumer goods, and services. So that's a very important aspect to look at. In closing on real estate, when you look at real estate, urbanization is driving demand for housing and commercial spaces. I wouldn't have given this example, but let me give it. So my wife told me she wanted to get into another arm of real estate. I said, what do you mean? I want to develop. I said, what do you mean? I said, go ahead. She identifies a small piece of land somewhere. I looked at it and I'm like, what are you going to do with this? And then I said, I'll support you wherever I can support you. Ladies and gentlemen, this was about, it only took 8-9 months and she had her 6 apartments up. Today, I think they're somewhere where I won't mention, but she's earning a fair good amount of money. But she had to start it. She had to get into it. I didn't initially believe in it, but you see, I don't have to believe in your idea. Many of us wait along waiting for validation from everybody around us, but take the risk, jump. If you believe in it, you've done your due diligence, you've done your studies around it, go for it. I'll talk about infrastructure. Of course, we know that once infrastructure improves, then transportation, logistics, energy, communication networks, those become very critical. We all know how blossoming the tourism sector is. It is a major economic driver and a key area for investment. Now, these major areas I'm mentioning are very important for you to think, okay, under tourism, what can I do? Where can I position myself? So I've mentioned food processing already. I've talked about e-commerce. I've talked about local service provision. I've talked about agribusiness and many others. How do I conclude? Ladies and gentlemen, so the subject matter, I want to close on the subject matter. We are saying, how do we discover avenues for growth in Uganda's emerging sectors? I challenge everybody on this platform right now, from all the things that I've mentioned, it's very important. I wish I could, but I would show you my vision board. My vision board is right on my right-hand side. The reason I established my first office to be my home office, the traffic jam I experience is just about 3-4 meters away from my bedroom. I then avoid traffic. I avoid unnecessary conversations. When you tell me you need me online by 7 a.m., I woke up at 2 a.m., and that's going to be another important area. When they told us entrepreneurship and business ownership, we quickly went into it and thought, wait a minute, then I've escaped the 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? For the last 2 months, I've slept about 3 hours every night. But I tend to get some times in the day to rest and spend time with family. Don't worry about that. I know you're about to ask, how do you spend time with your family? But it's very important to understand that someone wants me to show you the vision board. No, in the interest of time. So the vision board guides me in terms of understanding. When we talk about sector growth, yes, I look at agriculture. Right now, we're about to attract a huge investment on smart city creations in East Africa. But what I'm trying to say to everybody listening, and this is how I'm going to close, listen to me. Business and entrepreneurship is based on one, vision, okay, your vision. Number 2, value add to the world, to the markets, but value add to yourself, very importantly. Now, we all understand that the world of business is premised on 3 simple things: value exchange, which brings in the exchange for products, services to receive money. I've seen so many professors online and doctors online. And one of the key areas that right now is going to emerge is the consultancy business. But listen to me and hear me good. For every business you think of, you must develop a system to be the best at what you do. Can I say this? Africa is a $2.8 trillion economy. Apple as a company is worth $3.7 trillion. I did my research and found out that Africa as a continent has over 480,000 eatable plants. These are things you can put on a plate and eat. Now, we're talking about the potential of Africa. From agriculture to minerals, over 300 minerals across Africa. We've not yet talked about the coffee and cocoa and all that. But how can an entire continent have 2.8 trillion and one Apple? And I did my research. Apple has 8 mainline products. 8 products is what Apple sells us, and it's worth $3.7 trillion. My fellow Africans, we must rethink. And this is my conclusion and submission. Number 1, build your vision on your own. You don't want me to build your vision for you. When people come to me and say, I have my 5 million, where can I put it? I cannot tell you where to put your money. Develop your own vision based on your intellectual capital. Now, long enough we've complained about our education system. That excuse is no longer working. There's a lot of material. If I showed you around my table right now, there's over 15 books. These are all books around me. And I'm reading all the time to build my intellectual capacity because I want to build the best systems. For those of you that are Christian here, I'll also mention to you, Genesis 1:28 guides us in our business frameworks. Number 1, it says, be fruitful. That's production. Production. You must be producing something. It's a service, it's a product, produce something. Be fruitful was not about biological children. It was about actually production. Number 2, multiply that which you produce. That's why I told you, think beyond Uganda, think East Africa, think the world. Do not be afraid. Step in and think globally. Number 3, he talks about replenishing. That is distribution. Distribute that which you multiply. Look at emerging markets. Distribute. Number 4, subdue. Controlling systems, controlling markets. Very important. Finally, he talks about dominion. When you talk about dominion, I'll close with a very interesting. I need you to go and study about Vanguard and BlackRock. These 2 asset management firms globally today own up to $21 trillion in asset under management, AUM. $21 trillion, 2 companies, BlackRock and Vanguard, they literally own as many shares in every brand you can talk about. So ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of my precise submission to you. Now, I hope that you've been able to get a little bit of what I intended to state to you, but in the interest of time, allow me respect the time. Should there be any question, Dr. Diana, I yield the microphone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Edwin Musiime. We are very, very grateful. It is great to have you. Thank you very much for accepting in your busy schedule to come and talk to us. We have benefited a lot. Thank you very much. I checked in the chat and everybody is very excited. Many wanted to hear your story. Many wanted to go to the topic, and we just had to be in between there. But we appreciate you because you've been able to really cover many things in a very short time. Allow me to congratulate you on your PhD journey. Congratulations. And it's very important that we recognize you because it's a big achievement, and we appreciate your commitment in everything that you are doing. We're excited to have you, and we've learned a lot from you. I take note that your turning point was at 13 years when you overheard your dad having a lot of hopes in your life, in your future, and that really inspired you to be able to see what has become of you. And we appreciate the parenting that you've got. You mentioned another turning point when your mother told you that if you don't get government sponsorship, you forget about going to university. These are turning points you are identifying, and I think they are key issues to us, especially as parents. And it has been a diversity of many presentations, many aspects. We've picked a lot. I also picked from what you said that one does not get what they deserve, but they get what they negotiate for. So you are setting us to go out and really build a brand and be able to negotiate for what we can get. You also indicated something which I picked, which says that don't wait for anyone to validate what you want to do. It is also something that inspires. I will not waste time going into whatever you said, but I know we need to interact with you further. I will allow people to ask you some questions and allow me to invite Mr. Bone Kagaba to handle Q&A. Bone, are you there? Bone? If Bone is not there, Josh, can you handle Q&A? Please.
Certainly, Doctor. I think Bonnie got some technical issues. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, once again. My name is Karahanga Joshua. I'm going to take us through the Q&A. So how Q&A works, you'll be able to ask your question either through the chat, or you can type in the Q&A or raise your electronic hand. And I already see one hand that is raised, which is Mr. Mukisa Stephen. You can unmute and ask your question. And then I will also read out some other questions after that. Yes, Mukisa Stephen, feel free to unmute and ask your question. I might assume that Mr. Mukisa had his hand up in error because he's not unmuting. So let me go to the chat where there are quite a number of questions. Let me try to start at the top where there's, first of all, a lot of appreciation for the talk. Then Professor Obamui from Nigeria, I hope I mentioned that correctly, is he asked about what the Kingdom Network Africa is. I'll give you about 3 questions, then hand them back to you. Yes, he asked about what the Kingdom Network Africa is. Then Rebecca in the chat is also asking about you to show the vision board to us. I don't know if that will be possible. Let me keep going in. Just a lot of appreciation from everyone for your talk this morning. So thank you very much. I see. Maybe let me hand those. I think there's a hand that went up, it went down, but let me hand those questions over to you as I read more.
All right, thank you very much. Firstly, someone was asking for my number. Yeah, please, if you want to get in touch with me, someone who said you have so many questions you want to ask me. My number is +256 for the sake of Professor in Nigeria, 256 you begin with, 0750, oh sorry, 256750. For those in Uganda, it's 0750 39 5383. That is 750-39-5383. Someone was asking for my email address. It's edwin@rivergroupafrica.com. That's edwin@rivergroupafrica.com. edwin@rivergroupafrica.com. Please, Trevor, if you can just share those details as well over there. Now, the vision board, for purposes of classification and privacy, I don't think I'll be able to do that. I used to have a physical vision board, which I elevated into a digital board. It's now a digital board, but simply a vision board is a collage of images and words representing your ideas and your goals. And it's also called an inspirational board or manifestational board. And it's a fantastic way, literally, to organize what you want to achieve in the future while you take action. So it's literally a setup of your intended goals. But if you're 40, you're saying in 1, 2, 3 years time, this is where I must be. In 5 years time, this is where I want to be. In 10 years time, that's where I want to be. So that captures all that. So anyone can create that vision board. But if you follow me on social media, I think I know that there's one talk that I give and demonstrate fully on what a vision board looks like. The question on the Kingdom Network Africa. The Kingdom Network Africa is a non-denominational platform that is aimed at empowering Christians in business and leadership. Someone is asking, is it for Christians alone? Well, in the past, many of our programs have been attended by non-Christians, like the monthly meetings at Motive, that's on Old Portbell Road. Non-Christians are welcome to join in, because what we are sharing literally are these same principles on how to build great leadership prowess, how to build a business acumen. So you can actually join if you're really interested. But it's a network of, it's a platform where we are empowering Christians in business and leadership, then creating collaborations in Africa and globally in terms of growth investment. Right now, we are partnering with close to 12 universities across the world, because we are so big on empowerment. And I hope that we very soon can do something with MUBS. And Dr. Diana, please, I hope you're able to organize. We were proposing that you organize an opportunity for the members on this platform to be able to have, we're having Dr. David Molapo from the United States, Dr. Ron Thompson coming in. These are great thought leaders that are mentoring Fortune 500 companies. So it's very important that if you could organize that day at MUBS or wherever you can organize, it would be great. But I also make an open invitation. The graduation will take place on the 9th of May. Those of you that might have time, because we shall have a keynote from Dr. David Molapo, we shall have a keynote from Dr. Ron Thompson, and this will be at the URSB auditorium. If you're interested in attending, please also, Trevor, please share those contacts. Share your contact, share my contact. I'm seeing people asking for that. If you're interested in attending the graduation, because there will be those powerful keynotes that will be given, and I think they will be very important for anybody. For those of you that have not gotten Trevor's contact, allow me close with that, please. You can reach the Kingdom Network, Trevor, on 0744 771 010. That's 0744 771 010. And for my contact, I've said it's 0750 395383. If there's no other question, allow me. Do I make my final submission, or there's any other question?
There were some few questions. Maybe let me give you 3 more, if that's okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so from Sandy Kajumba, who asks, how do you stick to a vision and how do you self-motivate? There are also some in the Q&A. I think someone is asking about the meeting days for Kingdom Network Africa, but in Q&A, Adolf asks, what challenges have you faced in your entrepreneurship journey? And then let me lastly stop with Joel here, who says appreciations goes to Mr. Musiime for the wonderful and insightful discussion. The question is, how do we create and manage purposeful partners in our business growth sustainably, aware that growth journeys cannot be walked alone? There are still more questions, but I think for the interest of time, I will stop there.
Okay, I repeat, anyone that has a question that has not been addressed here, you can reach me on 0750 39 5383. 5383. I missed that very last question, but you can probably forward them to my inbox. Now, let me quickly deal with this. How do you stick to a vision? Listen, ladies and gentlemen, there are 2 parts of a vision. In the interest of time, I won't get into the details. But there's that first vision. Okay, let me make it simple. For instance, there's that first vision I got as an individual where I set it in my mind that I want to grow my businesses to become a billionaire. Not because I'm money hungry or wealth hungry, but because of the things that I could be able to do. And then I said to myself, I want to be a transformative force across Uganda, East Africa, and Africa at large. Now, that was the primal vision. I set the why I want to actually make the money, that I want to reach out. I want to set up hospitals. I want to set up orphanages. So there was that grand vision and grand plan. Now, if I said to you right now that every business I've started succeeded and I was rising and rising, no, I've had my share of failures. Many of them. I have written business concepts and some didn't work and some worked. So you do not have to stick to the main vision you need to stick to. One young man in Birmingham once asked me, sir, what do you want to be remembered for when you die? And that's the primal vision. I say to him, I want to be remembered for transforming lives. I didn't say I want to make money. I want to pray. Transforming lives. That is value addition to the world. That is what I call VAL. value addition to the world. Very, very important. The vision number 2 is where you can be what you call adaptive and flexible. Because someone mentioned, Dr. Dana mentioned it, when COVID hit, a number of things changed. And I'm not for giving up on certain ideas and dreams because of a period, unless I'm sure that that has become extinct and irrelevant for the times that we're in. So what I can say is that when you have a vision, the keyword I can give you is FOCUS, focus. Focus and don't get derailed. Someone talked about the challenges of face. I think the challenges all entrepreneurs face are this, not necessarily the same. Globally, the picture keeps changing. Then in Africa, the picture changes. But in Africa, in many economies, I think if the Nigerian professor is still present on the group, you'll find that African challenges are pretty much the same. Of course, Nigeria might have its advantage because it's the most populous nation in Africa, meaning the volumes and scales of business opportunities could be more, but the challenges tend to be the same. And I will tell you one thing that as a person, part of the challenges that are faced, of course, it would be the normal, obvious things. You have issues with tax authorities, you have issues with low market consumptions and all that. But I'll tell you something. I rather focus on always driving for the opportunities through my focus and through my tenacity to be able to overcome them. But the challenges are always many and they will always be there. But one key thing that I can say to you, always set your mind in an innovative solution-driven mode. When you deal with that, you won't then focus on the challenges, but rather on the solutions. Someone talked about creating partnerships. Oh my goodness, please allow me tell you something very important, those of you that are still online with me. Relationships in business mean everything. Please, when you set up relationships, do not be transactional. Be relational. Over the years, I've built friendships. Those of you that will attend the graduation on the 9th of May, I have friendships with Chinese, Indians, Japanese, Americans. I deal with everybody, Nigerians, Ghanaians. Ladies and gentlemen, if your business idea or enterprise is going to grow, you need key partners, you need friendships. Now I'm embarking on a global tour. Why? To make friends, not to make money firstly, to make friends in Dubai, in Qatar, in Saudi, in London, New York, name it. It's very important. Partnerships, of course, partnerships start from friendships. And the last thing I'll say to you, what I've observed as I travel globally, is that how relationships are handled in Africa is different from how they are handled in America. For a business deal to work or a business partnership work with an Australian or American, it could take you a relationship being built over 5 to 10 years. In Africa, it could be somebody understanding you and learning your integrity, values, and all that. Within a year or two, you could be doing business. But also, very importantly, the gentleman or lady that asked that question, before you even embark on creating these relationships, let me remind you, build your value first. Remember the story I was about to give you about the gentleman, the wealthy guy that I met that kept pocketing and didn't greet me? Guess what? I focused on building value. I set up the Homes Expo, set up the property show. 7 years later, I ran into a meeting where all these wealthy people were gathered. And the gentleman that called me out was Mr. Charles Mbire. He said, hey, Edwin, the man of the hour, the real estate guru. Guess what? The wealthy guy that didn't want to greet me then was like, can I have your business card? That is something for someone to learn and take home. I focused on building value, but I could have sulked and said, hey, ma'am, they are proud to be. No, I didn't sulk. I built my emotional capital and focused on building value. Let me tell you, those of you that are listening to me, focus on building your value. Results, relationships, growth, all that will come because of the value you've built as an individual. Remember, people are not necessarily interested in how you are. They're interested in who you are. Dr. Diana today, we reach out to her. We're interested in her because of the value she's giving, because of the office she's in. If Diana walked out today, God forbid, and said, people are not going to look for her because it's the value attached to her that they're looking for. You look for an Apple phone because of the value. You look for Mercedes-Benz because of the value. So, ladies and gentlemen, the rest is background noise. Build value. Build value. Third time, build value. Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Musiime. There's so many questions, but ladies and gentlemen, he has made it easier for us. There's a gentleman called Trevor in the chat. He has shared the contact where you can ask him questions directly. He has given you access to himself. So kindly take advantage of this opportunity. With this, I'd like to close our Q&A and hand it back to the host this morning, Dr. Edith Basarila. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Josh, for managing Q&A. And thank you once again, Dr. Edwin Musiime, for a great interaction with us. We have learned a lot. I can assure you, we have learned a lot from you in this short time. And thank you for managing time very well. Allow me at this stage to invite back Dr. Diana Ntamu to give closing remarks. Dr. Diana Ntamu, are you there? I'd like you to give closing remarks now.
Thank you, Dr. Basalira. And I really must say that it's been an honor to host Dr. Musiime. And I can already see that we have avenues for us to work to work together to support the growth of young entrepreneurs and all other entrepreneurs. This session has been mind-opening, focusing on building value, adding value to ourselves, and also continuously looking for opportunities. I believe that members on the platform have a lot to take away. And most importantly, I would like for us to look forward to hosting the speakers that you mentioned that will be coming to Uganda to speak at your graduation. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like us to continue supporting each other and partnering with each other to identify opportunities in the emerging sectors. Dr. Musiime, thank you very much, and we look forward.
Thank you very much, Dr. Diana, for the wonderful closing remarks. And this makes us believe in the future that we are going to continue interacting with Dr. Musiime. And Edwin, this is really to show that we are going to keep in touch and keep working with you. And I'm sure everybody who is logged on this morning has benefited a lot. We appreciate you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've gone beyond the top of the hour. I don't want to hold you anymore here. And I would like to wish you a blessed Thursday. Bye-bye for now.
This is going to gotta get up. Dealing with fractions. You gotta get up and make example, right? From my experience. Cause the world will never see you until you do. No, they don't really care what you're going through. So you gotta show 'em, baby. You gotta show 'em the real you. You gotta give 'em what you got. No, don't let them see what you're not. Cause you are strong. You are wise. You are worth beyond 1,000 reasons why. And you can be perfect, baby. Cause nobody's perfect, darling. But no, there's nobody in the world like you. What do you do when you can't let go? What do you say when you just don't know how you feel? And you know nobody knows how you. Cause everybody's got their own damn problem. So everybody's trying to find their way. And day by day you struggle in this world. Just know that you're not alone. You don't always have to be strong all by yourself. I said it's okay to ask for help. People will find you, but they don't define you. And you will find people who help redesign you. People will find you, but they don't define you. And you will find people who help redesign you. You are a work of art. Bet you didn't think you got this far. Now here you are. Baby, you are strong. how wise. You are worth beyond 1,000 reasons why. And you can be perfect, baby. 'Cause nobody's perfect, darling. But no, 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 there's nobody in the world like you. You know that you can be perfect. Nobody's perfect, darling. I love you just the way that you are. I love you just the way that you are. Oh, love, stars in the sky. Oh, when you look in my face. Oh, 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 oh.